Good evening. I'm Cristina Fernandes, a mother of two sensational boys currently registered at the WRDSB Corporation. Given the proposed bylaw amendments and the time constraint, I'll focus on the revisions concerning the delegation process as someone who is both registered to delegate multiple times and assisted others in navigating the daunting process. Appearing here and reading from a page seems straightforward, but it's so much more than that. I firmly believe that the proposed amendments not only fail to facilitate meaningful input from parents, constituents, and teachers, but are also intended to suppress it. By doing so, they render the role of WRDSB trustees irrelevant and expose the falsehood of calling our schools public. Few will bother to read the proposed amendments. Even with a summary provided, the chances of engagement are quite slim, but we all know that. Similarly, awareness of the school board is minimal. While some may have a vague notion of its existence, few grasp its actual functions and activities. Before even considering the register to become a delegate link on the WRDSB webpage, several conditions would have to be met. One would need to know the board exists, and they would need to know that the delegation process exists. The Parents of Waterloo Region Substack delves into the proposed bylaw amendments, raising numerous questions. Why didn't the board suggest amendments to Trustee Watson's original motion? Why introduce a nearly identical motion just 2 weeks later? And why the discrepancy in serving the two motions? The answer seems clear, and I quote, "So that the board can govern and move us forward, rather than stay stuck, to move us forward, not backwards," as quoted by the late Fred Meisner. What if the majority of the constituents would rather go backwards than anywhere near your forward? What if the trajectory of your forward is everything we stand against? Will you still go, regardless? And we all know the answer, because we witness it at every single board meeting. Trustee Watson was clear. The intention to review the bylaws was made in order to facilitate broader participation from the participants, stakeholders, and the teachers, to hear more than one side. And that serves everyone, not just those who are critical about sexualization or indoctrination in our schools, but for those who are concerned about air filtration, having unqualified staff teaching music, behavioral issues. And yes, it would even serve those who don't have much to say about the board, but rather about the people who criticize it. It was clear when Trustee Watson's motion was hijacked. She stated it so precisely. The motion will limit democracy and make it harder for parents and for trustees who actually bring forward constituents' concerns. I don't believe that there will be anything in the recommendations that are going to make it easier for parents. I invite every single one of you to prove her wrong today. 15.1 states, the Waterloo Region District School Board is committed to strengthening connections through family and community engagement. One opportunity for engagement is through delegations. Tell us, do the following proposed bylaw amendments help or hinder the board's success at this? 15.4, having an elected trustee whom represents only a small fraction of the WRDSB to be the person who grants or disapproves a delegation. 15.3, needing to provide a complete copy of the presentation in order to register to delegate. In other words, preparing an entire speech prior to even knowing if you'll be able to speak it. 15.4a, needing to go through a series of formalities in order to speak your mind before the board. 15.4b, needing to know if the matter is within the scope and the authority of the board. Side note, any school-related problem your constituents have is a board problem. You are the bridge between us and the ministry, us and the schools. Otherwise, what are you here for? 15.4c, having delegates know for consistency the board's commitments, duties, and responsibilities under the Education Act, the Ontario Human Rights Code, and the board's Human Rights Code. I'll tell you what is not consistent with a governing board's responsibilities under human rights. Any and all censorship or restriction to the freedom of speech. And I realize that when we use the word democracy, it has been obscured to mean principles of government to safeguard liberty against dictatorship. But those of us who've been paying attention know now that the word democracy is what will push us to dictatorship, tightly packaged with a bow. 15.4.3, that a delegation can only speak to the same topic once within a 12-month period. Is this regardless if the board does nothing to address the first 5-minute delegation? Or when false accusations come out from the board, will this delegate be able to come forward and address said commentary publicly? How about with new circumstances? Wouldn't an honorable board want to know about such perspectives? How otherwise could you possibly be making the best decisions for our children? How about 15.7, where you cut delegates' time in half from 10 to 5 minutes, and couple that with 15.8, where you shave off a whole 30 minutes of our precious time, with your precious time with us peasants? It's like cutting off 3 of today's 7 presentations. Did you not know that we would notice? We're paying attention now. We will not leave our children with less than what we had. This is not how the world is supposed to work. Your obsession with being right through DEI has gone far beyond anywhere it could serve some good, and it benefits no one but yourselves. You neglect exactly your role is here to instill learning, honor, resilience, and unity. Look at us. What have you done for our children and their education? You have the best seats. You attempt to shove us out while you feast and drink in the houses we pay for. You use our funds to slap legal on those who criticize your deplorable decisions. Now, even with the already very small percentage that 1, knows about the board, 2, knows that there's an option to come speak at the board, 3, who's willing to come speak publicly, we must navigate these additional hurdles before being deemed worthy of addressing the board. Who has the capacity in their day to do this? And yet many of you claim to know the meaning of these big words such as privilege, inclusion, diversity, and equity. These bylaws go against everything you claim to stand for. So I ask you, who does this benefit other than bureaucrats attempting to drive through the agendas they see fit without any consultation? The trustees' core responsibility is to govern the school board and ensure students' academic success. How can this be achieved while cutting off feedback from frontline staff and parents? Is the issue more about public feedback? Are we to be reassured knowing that rejected delegations are to be circulated via email? Is your goal to maintain the illusion of harmony by keeping issues under wraps? The decrease in publicly stated concern doesn't equate to fewer public issues. Ignoring them won't make them disappear. But it seems these bylaws are nothing more than a tool for you to govern us, rather than a tool to govern a board for us. Look around. Where are the parents you claim to represent? The only support your voting pattern comes from are activists, many without children, and some even found guilty of lying about student complaints. Who do you work for? We are approaching the apex of publicly funded school systems, and not only are you missing out on the opportunity to be part of a massive turning point, but you will be responsible for the wrecking ball that comes crashing down on it. Let's all be honest for a moment. The only thing that may be keeping these schools on life support is the trickle of oxygen that came from the possibility that you may start listening. And instead, the majority of you continue to triple down on your efforts, arrogantly tap dancing on those broken floorboards. This is about doing right by our children. And if you truly believe that censoring and deterring dissenting views is what's best for our kids, you don't know what's best for our kids. And you're also not who I nor most parents want for their children, or what citizens want for the schools they help fund. With that, more are seeing that they, in their good conscience, cannot and will not continue to fund this corruption. I propose that the board would consider that the WRDSB Bylaw 14 delegation procedures be amended to include a fair delegation process as was originally stated. Rather than welcoming impactful recommendations proposed by Trustee Watson to prioritize amendments that work for the people, we are confronted with numerous revisions that work against the people, unhelpful to constituents, detrimental to educators, insidious to parents, and harmful to the students, useful only to propel a tyrannical agenda. I'm grateful that Trustee Watson's name is not on this motion, because I know that upbraiding democracy to dictatorship and abolishing any idea of a public system that truly serves the public isn't anything anyone I align myself with would want to leave as a legacy.
Trustees, are there any?
Thank you for watching. If you appreciate the work that I do, please consider supporting me financially. I'm very happy to speak up for the protection of kids, and if you can't support financially, I would appreciate it if you help me overcome the censorship and just share these videos with other people so they know exactly what is happening. I left a link in the description to my Ko-fi account where you can do a one-time donation or a monthly subscription. Anything helps and your support is greatly appreciated. Thank you once again.